There are different versions of the STOMP, but the principles and the way they work are the same. If you do not have a troubleshooting guide, you can request an electronic copy. To access the connections that control and connect the STOMP, there are just two parts that you will need to remove. For the power connections and fuses, the power supply box, pressure switch mat connections, and to remove the mats, you will need to unbolt the 4 fasteners at the top of the cone, and lift the cone clear. If you do not need to remove the top cover of the STOMP, you can use packing tape to hold the cone up and out of the way. To access the LED strip connections, the control board and the STOMP mode switches, you will need to remove the top cover. There are 4 fasteners that attach the cover. On later models, the fastener located next to the top power input and volume control must not be removed. Be careful not to damage any of the connections when lifting off the top cover. On older models, you may need to carefully disconnect some wires that connect the top cover to the PCB. Make a note of where they plug in before you remove them, so you can plug back in when finished. If the STOMP does not work or light up at all, the first thing to check is your power outlet has power, and the STOMP is plugged in. Next, check the switch at the top of the STOMP is switched on. When on, the switch should be illuminated. If the switch does not light up, then either there is no power to the STOMP from the outlet, something has disconnected internally, the low voltage power supply has failed, or one of the protection fuses has blown. At the top of the STOMP PSU box, there should be a row of connections. Make sure all of them are securely plugged in. At the base, if you have a 3-pin socket without anything plugged into it, you are not getting power to the STOMP. If you have a STOMP with a top power input, the red plug should be connected to the socket. If you have a floor or wall outlet, there should be a black lead plugged into the socket. If you still have no power, make sure the STOMP is disconnected from the power outlet, then check the fuses. If you turn the STOMP on, and the column is illuminated from top to bottom, and will not start again when stepping on the mats, the STOMP is in the factory test mode. You will need to remove the top cover to access the PCB control board. Make sure the power to the STOMP is off. On the control board there is a blue component with 4 dip switches. If the switches are switched away from the numbers 1 to 4, you need to push all 4 switches over towards the numbers as shown. This should turn the STOMP into the normal operating mode. If you have a complete LED strip, or an LED strip with a number of lights on it that are not working, you should first check that the LED strip is connected securely to the control board at the top. If you need to change an LED strip, make sure the power to the STOMP is off. Remove the diffuser strip by carefully sliding upwards as shown. You may need to bend the diffuser if the ceiling is low. Take care not to scratch the diffuser taking it out or putting it back in afterwards. The LED strips are stuck to the STOMP with double-sided tape. To remove the strip, carefully unplug from the control board and peel the strip away from the STOMP column. When fitting the new strip, make sure the LED lights are in line with the other lights, and attached to the STOMP column with the double-sided tape provided, then plug the new strip into the control board. Before you start, it is important you understand how the STOMP mats work. The STOMP mats have 2 active switch areas as shown. The perimeter and a section down the center of the mat is not active. If you tread on these areas, nothing will happen. It is unlikely that all the STOMP mats will stop working at the same time. To test the mat is working, you must first make sure that you are off all of the mats. Tread on the active zones of the mat that you suspect is not working. If the game does not activate, step onto a neighboring mat. If that mat activates the game as shown, Then once the game is in progress, switch back to the suspect mat again and check that it is not advancing the game. There are a number of things to check. The STOMP mat connections are located under the base cone. Check that all the wires from the STOMP mats are connected to the spring terminal blocks. Check that the ribbon cable connectors are plugged in securely to the connection board. If all the mat cables appear to be in place, it may be necessary to remove the wires from the spring terminals of the mat that is not working. Check the stripped back ends of the wires. They should be stripped back approximately half an inch, or 12 millimeters in length. The wire strands should be twisted together to avoid any stray strands of wire. It is important that when connecting the wires to the terminal block, that the jaws of the connector are biting on the bare cable and not on the plastic coating of the wire. When reconnecting the mats, each mat has two twin wires coming out to connect to the STOMP. On each pair of wires, one wire will connect to the red terminal block and the other will connect to the black. It does not matter which cable of the pair goes to which color, as long as you keep the cables in pairs and next to each other in the block connector, as shown in the image. Step onto any of the STOMP mats to initiate the game. There will be a countdown of 3 blocks. After the countdown, you can start to tread on the left and right sensor areas of the mat. Once you know the mat is functioning, move on to the next mat until you have tested all the mats. If you are still having difficulties with your STOMP, you should take some video of the problem and send it to your vendor for evaluation. Most problems can be rectified easily.